Hi folks, on this video what we're going to be talking about are the steps involved in the cell division of mitosis. Also we're going to compare and contrast both the process of mitosis and the process of meiosis. So a few things, some key vocabulary that you might want to recognize. One thing is DNA replication. Another thing is haploid. And another one is diploid state, and also maybe daughter cells, understanding what those are. So those will be a few processes in mitosis, meiosis, but the vocabulary you'll want to really pay attention to. So we'll first start with mitosis and what the process is, and you'll see in brackets it says Mitosis. If we just quickly look over at the diagram here, we're going to see one cell eventually will become two cells. And these cells are each, these two daughter cells, which you can see listed down here. Those two daughter cells actually have the same amount of DNA as the original cell. So there was two chromosomes here. You notice there are two there. So there's one pair there, one pair, one pair. Now keep in mind in each cell we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. So what you're actually going to see here, 23, but to simplify this process, we just put one pair. So again, it produces two identical daughter cells. Okay, so mitosis is the process that's used for growth and for repair of body cells. There's going to be one cell division, which is really important to note, and it's going to produce two identical daughter cells. Okay, so the chromosomal pairing here, what you're going to see in these daughter cells is you're going to see 23 pairs, and again, like I said, this is called diploid state, or also known as 2N, and I'll write it here as well, 2N. Okay, so like I said, the daughter cells are identical to the parent cell. And so we're going to compare mitosis, again, for growth and repair of body cells, what we call these somatic cells. And we're going to see the difference between that and meiosis. So what I need you to do is I need you to take a look over here at this process. So these four steps, step 1, and they're labeled here, but step 2, step 3, and step 4 are very important. You will most likely or almost always see this diagram on a diploma, and you'll have to know these steps. Now, for the people that have taken Bio 30, you have to look at this in a little more in depth, and you have to understand the names of all these phases. We just have to describe what's going on. So if you take a look here, notice that we have one pair here. So now what happens is DNA replicates. So essentially what it does is it unzips floating nucleotides combined with their complementary pair, and it produces another strand exactly like the other one, and produces another copy of that DNA. So now if you look here, now we have a chromosome that looks like an X. Here we had an I. Here we have an X when it replicates, so we have another copy of that DNA. So when we actually go down, so what happens after they've replicated in this stage, for a short period of time they are 4N. Okay, so 2N represents two pairs. N would be 23 in this case, so 2 times 23 would be 46 chromosomes. Now, here, for a small period of time, we are 4N. Okay, so what's actually happening, that means we have twice as many chromosomes as we need. So what's actually happens in the next phase, step 3 is, or step 2, step 2, the DNA has replicated. Now what it does is it aligns along the equatorial plate of the cell, and spindle fibers actually attach from the centromeres, and they pull the DNA apart. So step 2 is alignment along the center or along the equatorial plate. Step 3 is going to be the separation of the chromosomes. So this is where those spindle fibers pull the chromosomes apart, and now what happens is eventually it's going to move to step 4, which is going to be cell division producing two identical daughter cells, like I'd said, if that makes sense. So again, these daughter cells are in a diploid state, and diploid is 2n, and 2n means there's 23 pairs, so n times 23 would be 46 chromosomes total. Moving on to meiosis. Now, good news about meiosis is you do not need to know in meiosis the process. You don't need to know these steps involved. All you need to know for this class is that you'll need to know the difference between meiosis. So cis. The difference is meiosis is going to produce not just two cells, but 1, 2, 3, 4 cells. And notice they have no pairs. If there are no pairs, then we call that haploid. Oops, sorry, I'm writing pretty messy here. And that's haploid. And so that would be N. Now notice that in the purpose of meiosis is to make sex cells. So sex cells are going to be your ovaries and your testes. So those are going to produce sperm and eggs. And you should know that a sperm and the egg are called gametes. And you see that word right here. You'll see it pop up on the diploma more often now. So how many cell divisions are there in meiosis? Well, compared to mitosis that had 1, meiosis has 2. So there are 2 cell divisions. It divides twice. How many daughter cells? Mitosis had 2. Meiosis has 4. And I've numbered those at the bottom. So the chromosomes are not paired though, those daughter cells, which means each one is different. And so again, when they're not paired and you get a single chromosome, that's called a haploid state or 1n. Okay? And then these, the genetic similarity to the parent cell, they're different. So if we talk about the similarities and differences, meiosis versus mitosis, mitosis produces 2 identical daughter cells. Meiosis produces 4 daughter cells that are different. They're genetically different. Meiosis is in the haploid state because there are no pairs in the DNA or in the chromosomes. There's no pairs of chromosomes. Mitosis is in a diploid state because there are pairs. So there are 2 pairs. In the body, we have 23 pairs of chromosomes for a total of 46. The diploid state would be 46. The haploid state would be 23. Mitosis produces cells that repair and build the body. Meiosis produces sex cells, so the sperm and the egg, also known as the gametes. Okay? Mitosis, there's 1 cell division. Meiosis, there are 2 cell divisions. Okay? So understanding, there will most definitely be a question with a diagram of mitosis and meiosis, whether it be a diagram based on a microscope and looking at cell activity, and you have to put the steps in order. There will also be comparisons of, you need to know the difference between the haploid and diploid state and which connects to which, and you'll have to compare and contrast mitosis and meiosis. So the last thing on this video that we are going to talk about is fertilization. And so in fertilization, basically what happens is we are going to take a sperm. I'll just draw a little table here. That sperm is going to have 23 chromosomes. So and it is going to be in, and they're not going to be pairs, it's going to be in a 1n haploid state. Okay, so I'm just going to put hap there. Now, it's going to be connected to, and I'm just going to put a plus, an egg. Egg's much larger than the sperm, but I'm just going to draw it small. Okay, so that's the, oops, my writing sucks. Okay, there you go. That's the egg. Again, egg is also going to have 23. It's going to be in a haploid state. What happens here is they are going to produce a zygote. Okay, so I'm going to circle this. This is going to be called a zygote. Now, zygote is before the offspring is born. That's what you produce essentially. So at this time, this zygote is going to have 46 chromosomes, going to be in a 2N state, which is diploid. Now, when we look at this, basically this is how we get that full set of chromosomes. So if we were to put this in order, what's going to happen is we're going to see fertilization occur first. Okay, the sperm, the egg, the sperm is going to fertilize the egg. Both are in a haploid state. Then it's going to have a full set. It's going to have a pair, 23 pairs of chromosomes. It's going to produce a zygote, okay, in a diploid state. Now what happens is mitosis is going to start building that individual, that offspring, or that zygote. And it's going to start building, and that's going to build the body and all the different components of the body that need to grow through different stages. Then at one of those points, then sex cells are going to be produced, and then you're going to see meiosis, process of meiosis, start to produce sex cells, sperm. At the point of fertilization, initially right away, basically a female has all the eggs that she's going to have. And so they basically have a set amount, these females, for their life, these women, and once they're gone, they're gone. So hopefully that makes sense. So I take a egg, I take a sperm fertilizes the egg and produces a zygote, and the zygote is in a, the zygote is in a diploid state. So if you look here, this is going to be 2N, that is going to be 1N haploid, that's 1N haploid, that fertilizes, the sperm fertilizes the egg. These are zygotes in here, okay? And these are sperm, and these are eggs. Haploid, 1N, and these are diploid, and they are 2N. Okay, well, hopefully that makes sense, and we will see you on the next video.